sir.
Thank you, C. Adish. Thanks for this nice introduction. Uh, Students will start now. Okay. Uh, I have always believed that these two subjects, that is the direct taxes and indirect taxes, I myself, I do my practice in both these areas, direct taxes as well as indirect taxes. Uh, well, Adish, should I record, or are you recording on my behalf the session on behalf of Picasa?
I will, sir, just ask Hetal ma'am.
Yeah.
I think she's recording.
All right.
I
No
will just
problem.
confirm in.
Yeah.
Sir,
Sure.
she's recording. She's recording.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes. So these two areas I have been doing my practice: direct taxes as well as indirect taxes. Indirect taxes, mainly now it is GST, as all the other acts have been subsumed under GST. So these two main direct and indirect taxes, I have always believed that direct taxation is more based on the analysis. It is more analytical, whereas indirect taxes are more procedural based. Okay. So in the case of indirect taxes, uh, with due respect to that particular law, with respect to indirect taxes, once you know the sections, once you know the rules, okay, it is only following the procedure. The analysis part is less in that, more of procedural part. But when you come to a law like income tax, it is more analysis based. Over a period of time, the number of sections have been added and the law has become more complicated, but the analytical beauty of this law remains. That is why I like in direct taxes. Okay, of course, with due respect to indirect taxes also. The new limb which has been added in the recent years, the international taxation. Okay, international taxation was not very important, maybe I'll say 15, 20 years ago, because the international transactions were lesser to that extent, maybe 2 decades ago. But now the value and the volume of international transactions have grown up rapidly, and that is why international taxation has become a part and parcel of the income tax law. That is why this paper which has been introduced, the name itself is Direct Tax Laws and International Taxation. So the name itself includes the term international taxation. So you can understand the importance of this. Okay. So with this background, we'll just, as see Adish sir told you, it is an MTP pe charcha, mock test paper pe charcha. So we'll discuss the mock test paper today, which you can see. I'm sharing the screen with all of you. Now, while we are sharing this mock test paper and the solution, okay, we'll also discuss a little bit about what should be our strategy for the remaining period, the study period which is left before we hit the exam day. So we'll discuss that side by side. Okay, there are two divisions, Division A and Division B. Division A is multiple choice questions, MCQs. We'll come to those a little later. Okay, actually that is a very favorite part with the students. Question is asked, there are 4 options and you choose the right option and you get full marks. So that's a more popular thing. So we'll keep the popular thing a little bit for the later part of today's session. First, I would like to come to descriptive questions in Division B, because that is where the whole analysis lies. Okay. So we'll come to Division B first. Question number 1. All of you can see the, I'll just share that particular page with all of you. Just a moment. These are all MCQ questions. And I suppose 10 questions are there. 1 minute. Just a minute. Yeah, I think I'll come at the end. 1 minute. Yes, here it is. Division B, descriptive questions. As the instructions are suggesting, question number 1 is compulsory. Attempt any 4 questions from the remaining 5. Of course, we are going to do all 5 questions and also the compulsory question we are going to do today. Okay, this is an interactive session. So if the student has any doubt, the student can ask the doubt online in real time there itself, without waiting for that particular question to be over, or else you can save your doubts at the end of the question as you are comfortable. We'll go to the question number 1 first. KMP Construction Limited. Okay. Well, one question to the students: are you all holding the mock test paper in your hands? Are you all having the access to it? Hello, anyone student can unmute himself or herself and answer the question, no problem. Are you holding that paper in your hands or on screen? Though I'm sharing it, of course. Hello, Hetal.
Hetal.
Adish sir.
Hello, yes, sir.
Yeah, Hetal madam. I suppose all the students have been given the copies of this mock test paper, right?
Yes, sir. I have given the copies
yes.
of the mock test paper,
Yes, yes.
sir.
One student has written in the chat box, yes, she's holding the paper, maybe on screen or in her hands. That is fine. So I suppose even the solution has been given to you, right, Sakshi? Sakshi?
Yes, the solution also has been given.
Yes, yes, has been given. So you can simultaneously refer both the question as well as the solution, and we'll be discussing that. That will be more convenient for all of us. Okay. So with this,
Okay.
I will start with the question number 1. KMP Construction Limited, okay, an Indian company engaged in the business of executing civil contracts awarded by various companies, central government and state governments in relation to infrastructure facility. Okay, so this is a question of KMP Construction Limited. It's a big question, compulsory question. So before we come to the reading of the question, let us go to the last line and find out what is asked for. Have they asked for total income? Have they asked for total income tax liability or something else? Let us first find out that, so that we'll read the question accordingly. So the student, while solving the question paper, first he should find out what is asked for. So let us go to the end, because in the beginning they have not given that. So I'll just go to next page. Other information is given. Yes, here it is. See the last paragraph. Compute the total income of KMP. They have not asked for computation of tax. You have to only calculate the total income and you have to stop there. So now we should read the question in such a way that we are able to, connect all the points so as to prepare a computation of total income of KMP Construction Limited for the assessment year 2021. And further, the question asks in the last paragraph, indicating the reasons for treatment of each item and ignoring the provisions relating to minimum alternate tax, assuming the company does not opt for provisions of section 115 BAA. The due date for filing the return of income is as 30th November 2020. Since during the previous year 1920, it entered into international transactions with associates. So this is the question. So let us first of all, once again, understand what is the question. The question is, you have to prepare the computation of total income. You don't need to calculate the tax, but when you are preparing the computation of income, you have to give proper notes as to the treatment which you have given, why you have given the treatment like that. If you have done some addition, why you have added. If you have done some deductions, why you have deducted. Or if you have not given any effect, why you have not given any effect. Even that should be written. Because suppose there is an item X for which no effect is to be given in the computation, still you should mention why you have not given any effect, because that also would carry the marks, remember. That is how. So we have understood the question. Now let us go back to the main question. Okay, there is one more thing in the last paragraph, that the company has not opted for section 115 BAA. Now what is that section 115 BAA and all that? We'll come to it a little later. First, let us start reading the question from the viewpoint of preparing computation of income. So I'll go back to the main question. Yes. See, in a topic like income tax, what you have to do is you should simplify the question. Okay, as you can see this question, this is a pretty complicated question. KMP Construction Limited does this, that, contracts from companies, central government, blah, blah, blah. And almost, I can tell you, 15 to 20 items of the various information have been given. At the end, you are asked a question which is also not straightforward. The question is prepare computation of income, don't consider MAT, consider that company has not opted for 115 BAA. This, they have made it pretty complicated, this entire question. Our first job, before we even touch upon the question, is simplify the whole question. Okay, decode the whole question and simplify the whole question. Make it simple to understand. Okay, so how I have simplified it for myself? When I read this question, I have to take out points which will help me to prepare computation of income, one. And what we should do, one by one, we should go decide whether that what treatment should be given to that item, and we'll go ahead. Okay. So simplify the question. That is the first technique. First technique is simplify the question. Now, statement, now second paragraph, KMP construction. Statement of profit and loss for the year ended 31st March 2020 reveals a net profit before tax amounting to rupees 85 lakhs after debiting or crediting the following items. Okay, so they have straight away given net profit as per P&L account 85 lakhs. Okay, now what I will do, I'm having the answer sheet ready side by side. I will just go to the answer sheet. Students should just tell me, are they seeing that particular screen? Are you seeing this screen, or should I share it separately? Ethel, madam?
So it is visible.
It is visible, right? Yeah. Any problems with the visibility of any screen, please let me know immediately so that I will accordingly make the changes. See, this is the answer. Sure. This is the answer which we have prepared. Okay. Always remember the technique. Simplify the whole thing. Computation of total income of KMP Construction Limited for AY 2021. PGBP, profits and gains of business and profession. Okay, that is what the head of income we have to start with. Net profit as per the statement of profit and loss 85 lakhs, very straightforward, the first line. Now we know that this need not be even discussed. We are CA final students. We need not discuss how to prepare computation of income. We have to start with the net profit as per P&L, add the disallowed items. We need not discuss those things. We are beyond that now. Okay, so now add items debited but to be considered separately, or add back the expenses which are disallowed. That will be our first line below the net profit. Now let us go back to the question. Okay, so first line we have completed of the solution. Now first point number A. One by one we'll go, we'll decide on the treatment and like that. Interest of rupees 3 lakhs due to a public financial institution for the last quarter of the financial year 1920 paid on 20th December 20. Okay, so here, as I said, I would like this to be a very interactive session. The student should immediately tell me interest 3 lakhs due to a public financial institution for the last quarter, which section it is covered. Well, it is section 43B. Am I right? I think all of you are also having the solution sheets in your hands. It is 43B. Now, what does 43B say? Let us go to that very quickly. See, even though I said that you have to simplify the question, too much simplification is not possible. So another hint, another point which I would like to tell you is that as a student of income tax, you should know all the sections by heart. So this particular section, section 43B, a very popular section. What is this section 43B? What are the major contents of this section? Okay, that you should know. What are the major rates? What are the major disallowances under the section? So that you should know. Maybe students, you can prepare a table or a chart of the various important sections. Okay, section, for example, section 43B. Make a small chart, name of the section, what are the main ingredients of the section, and then below that another section, and like that you can make a small chart which will help you first on at the time of doing your regular studies, and secondly at the last minute when you are appearing for the exam on the last day, even like 1 or 2 hours before the exam begins, you can go through that entire chart of the major sections, and that will help you to do a lot of things. because as we go ahead, you will see that only that student who knows the sections very well, only that student can pass this exam. You should know the exact section and the exact contents of the section. So first thing you have to do after today's lecture is start making a chart of the various sections. Section 1, section 2, section 3, what are the main ingredients? That will help you a lot on the last day of the exam. All right. Interest of rupees 3 lakhs due to a public financial institution for the last quarter of the financial year. Let us see what the treatment we have given in the solution set. See, we have added it back. Interest to public financial institution paid on 20th 12 2020. 3 lakhs fully has been added back. What is written, the logic which is given in the brackets, disallowance under section 43B would be attracted for AY 2021 since the interest is paid on or after 30th 11 2020 being the due date of filing the return. All of you know, this is the basic knowledge that under section 43B, this item has been specified that if any interest is payable to a public financial institution, it should be paid before the due date of filing the return. If it is not paid or if it is paid after the due date, it will not be allowed to be debited to the P&L account. That is why it has been added back, 3 lakh rupees. Very simple and straightforward addition. Second point, 6 lakhs to Mr. George, a non-resident, towards fees for technical services without deduction of tax at source. TDS, however, deducted and paid on 30th December 2020. This, see, on the plain reading itself, you will understand this is disallowed. You don't need big knowledge of income tax for this. If you are making any payment outside India without making TDS, the entire payment is disallowed. But you should always know to go deeper. What is the section? Okay. There is a section 40 which says that any fees for technical services paid outside India or paid in India but to a non-resident will be fully disallowed if tax is not deducted. So this 6 lakh rupees which has been paid to Mr. George, a non-resident, should be fully disallowed because you are not paid the tax before filing the return of income. So let us check whether we have given the same treatment. Have we added? Yes, that entire 6 lakhs has been added. Let us see how they have written the logic. Disallowance of 100% of the amount towards fees for technical services would be attracted under section 40A small 1 during the previous year 1920, since the tax was deducted and paid during the subsequent years. Okay. All right. One question here. I have heard that it is a 30% disallowance and not 100% disallowance. Anyone? Anyone? Is it always 100% disallowance? Well, I will leave that question for all the students. The same question at the end of the lecture, whether it is always 100% or not under section 40AI. All right, we'll go ahead to the third point. I'll keep the chat box open in between if I can, so that if any student wants to share anything to chat box, I will come to know. C, third point, damages amounting to 15 lakhs paid to government of Gujarat as per the terms of the contract for defects found in construction of a flyover after 5 years of its construction. The company had constructed a flyover, certain defects were found, and damages had to be paid to the government of Gujarat. This will be, there are certain things, this will be disallowed or this will be allowed. That is what we have to check. So we have to first of all know what is the section to be invoked here. The section is section 37. Okay, in section 37, there is an explanation 1. Make a chart. Section 37, explanation 1. Expenses for any purpose which is an offense or prohibited by law is disallowed. If you are making any expenditure which is an offense or it is prohibited by law, it will be disallowed. Let us read this particular point in that connection. You have paid damages to government as per the terms of the contract. There is no offense. This is not prohibited by law. So this is as per the law. Therefore, the question is whether you will allow this or whether you will not allow this. See, the point is written there, damages paid. Let us check what they have done. See here, they have allowed. No adjustment has been made because damages paid to the government is perfectly allowed. It is not disallowed. But even when you are not given any addition, you have to give the reasons. See, the reason has been given down below there. Payment of damages as per the terms of the contract for defects in construction is compensatory in nature and incurred in the normal course of construction, and such expenditure is deductible under section 37. Okay, no further adjustment is required. Only if it is an offense or it is prohibited by law, only then it is not allowed. Okay, for example, if you have put your two-wheeler in a no parking zone, okay, the RTO picks up your two-wheeler and you are paying a fine for parking your vehicle in a no parking zone, that is an offense. It is prohibited by law. Therefore, that particular penalty paid will not be allowed as reduction. But here, this is not an offense. This was as per the agreement. So this will be very much allowed to be deducted. 3 points we are done. So you need a lot of patience to solve these questions. A lot of adjustments are there. D point, depreciation charge 20 lakhs. This is the depreciation charge in the books. Right now, we will not make any adjustment. Subsequently, if they have given that income tax depreciation is X amount, only then we'll make the adjustment. Right now, we'll ignore this point. 5th point, mark-to-market loss amounting to rupees 6 lakhs in respect of an unsettled derivative contract. The contract was settled in May 2020 with a gain of rupees 1 lakh. Okay. This is a mark-to-market loss. You know what is mark-to-market loss, that in the case of the short-term investments, okay, on the year-end date, you will make a valuation of your investment. You are holding those investments, you will make a valuation of those investments, and any profit or loss on the valuation of investment will be recorded. And that is what is called mark-to-market. Okay, you're marking it to the market valuation. However, as per the ICDS 1, any mark-to-market loss is only a holding loss. It is an unrealized loss. It should not be recorded in the books of accounts. Okay. As per ICDS 1 accounting policies, mark-to-market losses should not be recognized. So, what is the treatment given? As per the ICDS 1, it should not be recorded. The company has recorded. Let us see what is the treatment. See the treatment. Mark-to-market losses, 6 lakhs has been added back to the profit. Why? Because as per ICDS 1, mark-to-market losses cannot be recognized unless the recognition is in accordance with some other provision. Since such losses have been debited to the statement of profit and loss, they have to be added back. Always remember this, MTM should not be recognized. So this is another thing, you know, all the ICDS you should know by heart along with the sections. Next point is profit of rupees 10 lakhs on sale of land to N Incorporation USA, which is a wholly owned subsidiary company. Now this profit on sale of land 10 lakhs it is not chargeable to tax under profits and gains of business and profession. It is definitely taxable, but not under the head profits and gains from business and profession. That is why you will see that it has been deducted. Less items credited to the statement of profit and loss, but not includable in business income. 10 lakhs profit on sale of land because it is under capital gain. Next point, retention money amounting to rupees 10 lakhs held by a PSU which can be released after expiry of 2 years on the satisfaction of certain performance criteria. Students, any doubt till now? Shravan, Rutuja, Sakshi, any doubt? You can unmute yourself and speak if you want. See, no doubt means either you are understanding everything or you are not understanding anything. Yes? Well, on my safer side, I can assume that you are understanding everything. Okay? See, if you do not participate, if the lecture is not interactive, I'll start asking questions to individual students. Sakshi, Rutuja, others, I'll start asking questions to individual students. So please be responsive, ask the queries, or if not queries, answer the questions, okay, which I put to all of you. You are all CA final students. Okay, coming to retention money. Now this retention money, the company amounting to rupees 10 lakhs, this money has been held back. What happens is that when a contract is awarded and the money is paid to me, some percentage of my money is held back by the companies. Okay, and there is a section in income tax, section 43CB, 43CB, which says that for the purpose of construction contracts, the contract revenue shall include retention money, section 43CB. Therefore, this retention money, which has been included as a part of revenue, it has been correctly done by the company. No adjustment is required, according to me. Let us see what they have done in the answer sheet. Retention money. Look here. See, they have put a dash, which means no adjustment. What they say, section 43CB requires recognition of contract revenue, and it includes retention money, so no adjustment is required. Okay. Next point. One by one we are going. We are checking each and every item, whether it is to be added, to be deducted, or no adjustment. And we are ticking every item after completing one by one. Rupees 3 lakhs being interest on fixed deposit made with a bank as a margin money for obtaining a guarantee required by the state government for a particular contract. Remember, it is not always necessary that every point you should know the section. There are certain adjustments which are purely based on common sense. Here, you can clearly find out that this fixed deposit which is being put is a margin money for obtaining a guarantee. So you are not putting this fixed deposit as an investment. It is not spare money. It is not extra money. It is your legal responsibility to put this money with the bank so as to get the guarantee from the bank. Otherwise, you can't do business. So my next question is any adjustment required for this 3 lakhs? Is it income from other sources? Rutuja? Rutuja, you can unmute yourself. Sakshi, is any adjustment required? Okay. Hetal, madam, one question. How can I go back to my full screen?
Full screen mode, sir. Just click on your phone. Bottom, you might be having this your icon.
Correct. More icon.
Just click over there.
I am on the laptop actually.
Acha, okay, laptop.
Share computer sound, record in this computer. Okay, I'll just check. Down there I can see a lot of options. Yes, there's one participants option here. Yes, I can see all the participants here. Okay, all right. All right, I'll continue. I just wanted to know how to see the participants. So retention money, which is there, retention money, there's no adjustment which is required because you see here 43CB says that retention money has to be included in the income. So no adjustment is required. So we are done with G point. We come to H. So well, that also we have completed. Interest on fixed deposit. No adjustment is required because this is a business exigency. You have to maintain the fixed deposit with the bank because it is a business requirement. So no adjustment. I point. A very interesting point and a real technical point. Income of rupees 10 lakhs received from a real estate investment trust, the breakup of which is as follows. Component short-term capital gain on sale of development properties and component of rental income. Now this is something, you know, REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust, is a topic which can be discussed for one hour. Okay, but of course we are on income tax. So let us quickly finish this. What is to be done? This 10 lakhs income which is there received from REIT, is there any adjustment required or not? 6 lakh and 4 lakh. We'll first go to the model answer and find out what they have done, and then we'll discuss why they have done like this. Let us see. I'm just taking you down. Income received from REIT. See, short-term capital gain component of 6 lakh is taxable in the hands of REIT, and hence it is exempt in the hands of unit holder. Since 6 lakh has been credited to the statement of profit and loss, the same has to be deducted. Rental income, they have not made any adjustment because as per section 115, such income would be deemed as income in the hands of the unit holder. Okay, so in short, they have made the adjustment for one item. For the other item, they have not made the adjustment. Let us understand what they have done in the model answer. See, when you receive any money from the real estate investment trust, you have made investments in the real estate investment trust and you are receiving the money. Okay, the money can be received in two forms. The real estate investment trust has certain short-term capital gains, and then it passes on those short-term capital gains to you. It is 6 lakhs in this case. And the real estate, just a minute, the real estate investment trust has some rental income and it has passed your share of 4 lakhs to you. Okay. Let us see how the treatment is to be given. There are two sections related to this here. Section 1023 FD and section 115 UA. I have told you, you have to prepare a chart like this. As per section 1023 FD, that, and as per section 115 UA, if the business trust is distributing any rental, any short-term capital gain, then that should not be treated as income in the hands of the recipient, and therefore it has been added back. Always remember, make it a point, if you are making an investment in the real estate investment trust, any short-term capital gain received is not your income, therefore reduce it, deduct it, it is not your income. Whereas if you have received any other income, rent, dividend, interest, etc., that should be treated as your income, and that is why it has been properly included in the computation. No adjustment is required there. Now let us come to next. Shravan, are you there? Shravan? Hello, Shravan. Okay, all right, no problem. Now we come to that next adjustment of depreciation. Earlier there was this is a pretty simple adjustment, did not be even discussed. You know that depreciation as per the books is 20 lakhs. Depreciation as per the IT rules is 25 lakhs. So additional 5 lakhs I will deduct, right? This is too simple to even discuss this particular adjustment. We'll just go down to check whether they have given the same treatment. Yes, less permissible deduction 5 lakhs. depreciation of rupees 25 lakhs as per IT rules, 20 lakhs you have claimed as per accounts, so 5 lakhs additional you have to claim. Next point, land sold to N Inc. was acquired at a cost of 30 lakhs on 25th May 2015. Value assessed by the Stamp Valuation Authority on the date of sale was rupees 50 lakhs. Then they have given the cost inflation index for the 2 years for the date of sale, year of sale and the year of purchase. Let us see what is the treatment. Just give me 1 second. Yes. There is a section under Income Tax Act section 50C. First, let us understand that before we go to this. Otherwise, capital gain, it is too simple to calculate. Sale value minus index cost of acquisition is my capital gain. So that I need not discuss. That has been given in the solution set to you. But what is section 50C? Let us very quickly see that. Section 50C says that when you have sold a land and building and you have received a consideration, if the consideration which is received by you is less than the stamp duty value, then it is the stamp duty value which will be taken as your consideration. So suppose if you have received 100 rupees as your consideration, but the value as per stamp duty is not 100, it is 120. Then 120 rupees will be taken as your sale value, not 100 rupees. Another small condition in that is that your consideration which you have actually received and the stamp duty value which is there, the difference between the two should be more than 5%. Okay. So suppose if the consideration which I have received is 100 and the stamp duty value is only 102, only 2 rupees more, then this section will not apply because the difference is less than 5%. So with this background, let us come to this. Otherwise, this is a pretty simple rule, how to calculate the capital gain. Here we'll take the stamp duty value 50 lakhs as the actual value because you know the real consideration which you have received is very less. It is only 40 lakhs. So 50 lakhs will be taken as sale consideration. Let us go to the solution. See here, full value of consideration 50 lakhs. Okay. Down below it has been given to you. Stamp duty value of rupees 50 lakhs would be deemed as full value of consideration since it is higher than 105% of the actual consideration, 40 lakhs. Index cost of acquisition has been calculated. I need not discuss how it has been calculated. One more very small but very important point which they have mentioned there, that even though KMP Construction Limited holds 100% shareholding of N Inc., transfer of land by KMP Construction would be regarded as transfer for the purpose of levy of capital gains. See, under capital gain, being a CA final student, you should know that there are certain transactions, they are not regarded as transfers. So if you are transferring the land and building to your own subsidiary, then it will not be treated as a transfer at all. Here, KMP Limited has sold the land to N Incorporation, which is a subsidiary. Okay. So it should not be regarded as a transfer, but you should know that there is an exception, that if such subsidiary is not an Indian company, then this exception does not apply. Such minute study has to be made by you. Otherwise, you know, it is very difficult for you to get through. So as I told you, first of all, you should know how to simplify the whole question. But second, you should know section by section the main ingredients. So make a chart, make a table, that is inevitable. Finally, we come to the last leg of this question, that gross total income has been calculated 94,86,000 and deductions under chapter 6A, that is what we come to under section 80JJAA. Let us see what is the deduction of 80JJAA. It is a deduction in respect of the new employees. If the company has appointed new employees, then the company gets a deduction of 30% of the additional employee cost. But there are three exceptions to this. You may have appointed additional employee, but the salary of the additional employee should not be more than 25,000 per month. That is the first condition. Second condition, the employee should be employed for more than 240 days. Well, that is almost more than 8 months. The new employee should be employed. And third, employee should participate in the provident fund. If all these three conditions are satisfied, only then deduction is available. Let us see the information given. 82 new employees were added. Okay, 15 employees, 25 employees, 32 and 10 employees. The regular employees participate in the recognized provident fund, which means non-regular employees do not participate. Now let us see how much deduction under section 80JJA will be given. See, first of all, first 15 employees, they are satisfying all the conditions. Their salaries are less than 25,000 per month. They are regular and they have worked for more than 240 days. Full year they have worked. So deduction will be allowed for them. Next 25 employees, they are regular, but their salary is more than the threshold limit, 25,000. So they are not allowed to be deducted. 32 employees are casual, so no deduction for them. And finally 10 employees, they are regular, but they have worked for less than 240 days. See, they have been employed on 1st September 2019. That is hardly 210 days. So they have worked for less than 240 days. So deduction will be available only for first 15 employees. Their full salary will be allowed. So accordingly, deduction can be taken. So here, check the deduction, how it has been taken. The note has been given down below. We'll go to the note. Just a moment. Yeah, here it is. See, I'll just highlight the portion for you. See, that 24,000 rupees per month for 15 employees for 12 months. So 24,000 into 15 into 12, total is 43,20,000. And what is the deduction? 30% of 43,20,000. So this is the deduction. See, 12,96,000. I have highlighted. So that 12,96,000 will be deducted from the computation. We'll go back to the computation. See, this is the deduction, 12,96,000. So total income is 81,90,614. Okay. Now, so the answer is complete. But now let us come to the main point. Okay. Now, this is a question which even it's very difficult to know so many provisions. Then what should be done by the student if, let us say that they have given 15 to 20 adjustments, if as a final student I do not know 5 adjustments out of that. Right now I know all the adjustments, I am an expert because the solution is set is there in front of me. But in the examination room, if I do not know out of 20 adjustments, 5 adjustments I do not know how to do. Okay. And I do not want to throw an answer. What I will suggest, you make a proper format of computation, give effect to all those adjustments which you know for sure they are correct. And then the rest of the adjustments, you should still give an effect because there is no negative marking. But you should be sure that out of these 20, these 15 I know for sure. So accordingly, I will at least get the marks for these 15 adjustments. So try the question even for those adjustments which you do not know. For that purpose, the first technique is simplify the question, and second technique is solve as much as you can. See, nobody here is a full expert. So obviously there are certain things at the last minute, the revision will remain to be done, but you should definitely try to solve the entire question and come. But don't mess up. You should know your limitations. You should know what things you have done correctly and what things you have made mistakes upon. Okay. But try to be as much perfect as you can. Though 100% perfection, of course, is not possible. Income tax is a very deep law. Even big people can't claim to have full knowledge of that. With this, we'll come to question 2A. Okay. before we come to question 2a, this question relates to section 10AA. So I'll first we'll discuss little bit about 10AA. Once we discuss about 10AA, 10AA, solving this question is a matter of 5 minutes, let me tell you. Okay, I'll just discuss 10AA with you. Just give me a moment, I'll come back. Just a moment. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Let us discuss section 10AA. Now, this section 10AA, it gives special provisions in respect of newly established units in SEZ. Okay. Deduction of 100% of the profits in calculating income from unit in SEZ. So you have to calculate profit from the SEZ unit. 100% of the profit is allowed to be deducted. So that is the first benefit. Rate of tax for domestic company is 25. Sorry, I have gone to the next section. Extremely sorry. So this is section 10AA in one line. 100% of the profit from SEZ is allowed to be deducted. Remember this entire word sentence very carefully. 100% of the profits of unit from SEZ. With this background, we'll come to this question. XYZ LLP, question number 2A. XYZ LLP, a limited liability partnership in India, is engaged in development of software and providing IT enabled services through two units, X and Y. X is in SEZ, B is in domestic tariff area. The LLP furnishes the following information relating to the fourth year of operation ended 31st March 2020. Why fourth year of operation? They have specified because 10AA benefit is available for the first 5 years 100%. After that there is a reduction. So they are into fourth year means 100% they can claim. They have given unit X and unit Y, they have given all the details. Remember, for unit Y, because it is in the domestic tariff area, no benefit under section 10AA can be claimed. So unit Y we have to simply exclude because no benefit we can claim. Only we have to check unit. Only we have to check unit X. Just a moment. Let me just put off my video. Just 1 minute. Yeah, start video here. Yeah, sorry. So as I told you, let us first go to what the question has asked from us. Here. Last line. Compute the tax payable by XYZ LLP for the assessment year 2021. So we have to first calculate the total income and then secondly we have to find out the tax payable. Now, let us go to the answer straight away, the solution set. Just a moment, let me go to question number 2 in the solution set. Here this is computation of total income of XYZ LLP for AY 2021. Okay. Profit. So first they have calculated profit from unit X and profit from unit Y. Let us go to that. See, in the question they have given export turnover of both the units, domestic turnover of both the units, duty drawback, profit on sale of import entitlement, salaries paid, other expenses, and net profit. So this is supposed to be net profit as per P&L account. Additional information has been given. Unit X, expenses of 24 lakhs are disallowed under section 43B. Export sale proceeds received in India amount to 1040 lakhs. Export sales of 1200 lakhs include freight and insurance of 200 lakh rupees, and realization of rupees 1040 lakhs includes amount of insurance and freight charges of 140 lakhs. Export sales received in India regarding unit Y now. Export sales received in India were rupees 850 lakhs. Expenses charged and are to be disallowed as per section 48(3) are of rupees 47 lakhs. So what we have to do is we have to quickly prepare a small computation of income. See, net profit for the year has been given in the table. In the first table, there is no disallowance. There is only one disallowance under section 43B. So let us see. In the answer sheet, they have taken net profit as per profit and loss account. For unit X and for unit Y, and then they have added the disallowance under section 43B and under section 48(3). So you get the total profit 1326. Deduction under section 10AA, working note. This is the most important part of this particular question. So let us go to that working note first. 100% of the profit, export profit, is allowed to be deducted. So let us go to the working note. Here it is. Total turnover of the unit is 1200. See, you have to first calculate the total turnover. 1200. It is given in the main question. I'll just also have that particular sheet in my hands. Yes, it is 1200. Export turnover of unit X. See, when you are checking the export turnover, even though the actual export turnover is more, the amount actually received in India is to be considered for the purpose of deduction. It is only 1040. Insurance and freight is not a part of sales, so that should not be considered. So let us exclude that 140. Balance 900 is your export turnover. So you got the export turnover 900, you have got the total turnover of 1200. Now we have to calculate the profit. The profit is, as per the P&L account, is 502, but you have to add back the 43B disallowance, and duty drawback and profit on sale of import entitlement is, even though it is business income, for the purpose of section 10AA, it is not, because it is not derived from the export business, it should be deducted. It should not be considered as income. So that has been deducted, and the net profit is only 464 lakhs. So you can see that the total net profit is 464. Out of that, the profit which relates to export business, only that much deduction is available. So how it has been calculated? See the last line in the table. 464 multiplied by 900 upon 1200. So the proportion, 1200 is the total sales, 900 is the export sales. So we have taken 900 upon 1200 multiplied by 464. 100% of that is 348. So this is the deduction under section 10AA, 348. Let us come back to the main calculation. 348. Let us see here. Deduction under section 10AA, 348 has been given. Total profit 1326, less deduction 348. The total income is 978 rupees. Tax on total income 30%. Now here, one important thing that you should know, that is why I want to mention it to you, that in the case of domestic companies, the rate of income tax is only 25% if the turnover is less than 400 crores. But if the turnover is more than 400 crores, then the rate of income tax is 30%. So in this case, 30% rate will be applicable. Surcharge will be applicable because the income is more than 1 crore. Surcharge is applicable. So let us take surcharge at 12%. The total income is 320. The total tax is 328.61, and add the education cess 4% as usual, 13.14%. tax liability is 341. Okay, so this is the total tax liability. You should simultaneously check whether the MAT, the minimum alternate tax, or the alternate minimum tax as it is called, you have to check that also, and whichever is higher has to be taken. So down below, the calculation has been done for alternate minimum tax. Alternate minimum tax, as you can say, it is only 285.74, whereas the actual tax in the upper table is 341. Since that 341 is more, the company will have to pay 341 as its tax liability. So this is that question number 2-1 for you. Okay. Remember one more thing, this particular paper, income tax, it's a pretty lengthy paper. You know, you will wait for it to finish and it will go on and on. It's pretty lengthy. So the first thing which you have to always do is keep your mind cool and calm. When you go through the paper, when you read the paper, first of all, spot the questions which you think you will get 100% marks for. Attend those questions first. And those questions where your preparation is a little less, attend those questions little later on. Okay, so first of all, you have to go through the entire paper very quickly, find out which questions you should attend first. Wherever you are, doing, your knowledge is good, attend those questions first, and then where your knowledge is little on the poorer side, keep those questions at the end, at the back. Okay, always remember MCQ questions, just because they are MCQs doesn't mean you will fare well in those. Sometimes MCQs are the questions which turn out to be the real problem situations. So just because MCQ, don't try those first. Even though it may be a descriptive question, but you think you are better prepared for that, attempt descriptive question first and then go for that MCQ. Okay, because sometimes MCQs can be more dangerous than descriptive questions. I have seen many students doing very good in descriptive questions, but in the same paper in MCQ they have performed horribly. Okay, so be careful with the MCQ also. Okay, even though they are popular, they will fetch you a lot of marks. They can also kill all the prospects if you are not well prepared. Question number 2B. The question is, now this is a small question. Now the big questions are behind us. Now all the remaining questions are smaller questions. Rule 10MA of the income tax rules requires that the application for rollback provision in respect of international transactions. Just a minute, I can see that there are some chats here. Okay, Rutuja, thank you very much. The guarantee for business. Okay, you chatted, fine. But I would have liked it if you unmute yourself and speak. That will make it more interactive. Okay, you always remember it for even other sessions. To make a lecture more interactive, you should unmute yourself and speak. Okay, that tells the speaker that, well, here is a gathering which is highly interested. I know even all of you are interested in today's lecture, but it will be better if you unmute and speak. Okay. Rule 10MA requires that the application for rollback provision in respect of an international transaction has to be made by the applicant for all the rollback years in which the said international transaction has been undertaken by the applicant. In this context, you are required to explain whether the rollback has to be requested for all the 4 years, or the applicant can choose the years out of the block of 4 years. What I will do here is that I will not tell you what is the answer, because solution set is with you and you know what the answer is. So I will not discuss the answer with you. I will discuss with you what is the rollback provision. Okay, let us check what is the rollback provision. Before we come to rollback provision, let us go to something called APA, Advanced Pricing Agreements. Advanced Pricing Agreements are entered with the Government of India. You know that transfer pricing regime is there, it is very strict. So if you do not want any scrutiny of your transactions, or you do not want later on any harassment, enter into an advanced pricing arrangement with the Government of India. The Government of India will tell you that for the transaction which you are entering into, international transaction, what is the arm's length price that arm's length price for international transaction will be decided by that APA, Advanced Pricing Agreement. Once you decide your arm's length price, okay, this price will be recognized for 5 years. So today I enter into an APA. 5 years from now, my arm's length price will be recognized, and I can charge that price to my international transaction, and my transaction will not be put to scrutiny. No harassment will be done. So many companies are resorting to these APAs because that reduces the element of uncertainty, that reduces the element of trouble from the revenue authorities. Now, what is rollback? Now, let us say our company XYZ had entered into a pricing arrangement with the government for the next 5 years for a particular international transaction, for one X international transaction. So now our arm's length price is fixed. But now we want to extend this benefit for the earlier years also, for which we did not have an agreement with the government. So we'll request the government that you have given the benefit of this arm's length price this year to us. You are going to give this benefit for next 4 years to us. Can you give the same benefit to us for the earlier 4 years for which we did not have an agreement with you? This is called rollback. Okay, you are taking the benefit for the earlier years. This is called rollback. Okay. Now what happens is that if a company wants to extend this benefit to the years preceding the current year, then this rollback provision, the benefit can be taken. Companies allowed to apply for a rollback agreement for fixing arm's length price of the previous years too, up to 4 years. You can go back up to 4 years, so that they are also not picked up for the scrutiny. So even the earlier 4 years transactions will not be picked up for the scrutiny. Section 10MA relates to such rollback provision, such rollback provision. Okay, so this is the section and this is the rollback provision. Okay, as I told you, I will not discuss this answer because it is there in the model answer, and once you know what is a rollback provision, you will automatically understand what is the answer. Okay, we'll go to the next question, question number, but still if you want me to discuss, I'll discuss the answer. Anyway, we'll go to next question 2, Texo Bank. Okay, Texo Bank, carrying on banking business, is incorporated in California, USA. It has branches in different countries, including India. During the financial year 1920, the Indian branch of the bank paid interest rupees 35 lakhs and 15 lakhs to its head office in California and to the branch office in Sydney, respectively. Examine with reasons whether interest so paid shall be liable to tax in India in the hands of head office or Sydney branch or not. Okay. Let us see the model answer, what I have given it to you. Okay. I'll just go down here. Okay, here it is that in that this particular question, interest of 35 lakhs and 15 lakhs are deemed to accrue in India because the Indian leg of the company has paid it to Australia and Sydney, Australia as well as the California head office, which is in USA. Because it is originated from India, both are taxable in India. They are supposed to accrue or arise in India. Okay. Now with this we come to question number 3 on, let us go back to the question. Here it is. You are required to compute the total income of Sarvamangala Charitable Trust registered under section 12AA from the following information. Also compute the income tax liability in such a manner that it can avail optimal benefit within the 4 corners of the Income Tax Act. And they have given all the details. Gross receipts 200 lakhs, corpus donations, anonymous donations, administrative expenses including certain expenses made in cash. Trust gave corpus donation to serve the poor. Then the fees not realized from the patients are 18 lakhs. Depreciation of the trust has been given. The trust acquired a building for rupees 80 lakhs. Trust follows cash system of accounting. Okay. So you have to make the computation of income of the trust. Okay. Let us go to the solution set to find out how they have made the solution. Students, I request you to keep the question in your hands so that when we are discussing the solution, that will be pretty quick for all of you. See, here, the net profit as per P&L account has not been given. So you have to start with the gross receipts from the hospital. Then anonymous donations will be added back. Okay, there are certain anonymous donations which are 12 lakhs. Okay, so they have been given that 12 lakhs is the anonymous donation, but out of that, you very well know that you have to take a particular percentage of anonymous donations only as liable to 30%. The balance is liable to tax at normal rates. So the anonymous donations which are liable to tax at normal rates has been added here, and the total such gross receipts are 2 crore 3 lakhs. You know that in the case of any charitable trust, 15% of the gross income is not at all taxable. So that has been reduced, 15% of 2 crore 3 lakhs. And only the balance you have to consider whether it is taxable or not. Even the balance income of a charitable trust, if it has been applied to charitable purposes, it is not at all liable to tax. So here if you see that the revenue expenses are 75 lakhs, total expenses are 77 lakhs, but 2 lakhs are like they are paid in cash, that is why they are disallowed. So 75 lakhs is the expenditure which has been applied for charitable purposes. In the case of a charitable trust, even the capital expenditure is allowed to be deducted. So that 80 lakhs, the land and building which was taken, even that is allowed to be deducted. If the corpus donation has been paid, it is not allowed to be deducted because the corpus donation received is not a part of income. So corpus donation paid cannot be a part of expenditure. Total income is calculated 17 lakh 55,000. Then anonymous donations have been added 30%, 9 lakhs, and that is how the total income it is. Now what happens is, of the total income, tax on total income, the rate of tax is whatever the rate of tax is applicable to the individual, the same rate of tax is applicable to a charitable trust. So here in the same way the income has been calculated up to 2,50,000, 2,52,000, 5 lakhs, etc. That we need not discuss how the tax has been calculated. And anonymous donations have been taxed straight at 30%. So total tax liability is 6,33,360. Okay. So this is how it has come. Now let us come to the next question. Question number 4A1. Determine the liability for tax deduction at source in the following cases for AY 2021. Mr. Raghav gave now, these are pretty small questions and they won't take much time. Let us quickly go to the analytical part only. Mr. Raghav gave a building on sublease to MT Limited with effect from 1st June 2019 on a rent of rupees 20,000 per month. The company also took a machinery on hire from Raghav with effect from 1/10/2019 on hire charges of 15,000 per month. The rent for building and hire charges of machinery were credited by the company to the account of Raghav. Now here the company, it has paid the rent. You know that if the rent is more than 20,000 per month, 2,40,000 per annum, tax has to be deducted. The company has definitely paid more than 2,40,000 per annum to Raghav. So let us see how the tax liability arises for the company. See, the company has to, whatever the rent is there for the property, Raghav has given the property on hire, the building on hire, there the company has to deduct 10% because that is the rate on building, and the company has taken machinery on hire, there the rate is only 2%. So the company has to deduct only 2%. The answer is, on the rent of property, 10% has to be deducted. On the rent of machinery hire charges, only 2% deduction is to be made. Second question, 4A2, Mr. Sarthak, an individual whose turnover from the business carried on by him during the financial year immediately preceding the financial year exceed 100 lakhs. On 15th October 2019, he paid fee to an architect, 54 lakhs. Okay. Here, as you can see in the model answer, they have given that this is not liable to TDS because his residential house he is renovating, and for that purpose he is paying fee to the architect. So no TDS is to be made. But recently a new section was introduced, section 194M, which states that if you are paying more than 50 lakhs to any contractor or any professional, whether it is professional or personal, if you are paying more than 50 lakhs, TDS has to be made at 5%. So here TDS will be attracted not under the normal 194J, it will be attracted under 194M, which is the new section. Then next about TDS. So you can see this is the question on TDS. So if you are really making good preparation for the TDS questions, this question will be through completely. A Limited entered into an agreement for the warehousing of its products with MNO Warehousing and deducted tax at source as per the provisions of section 194C out of the warehousing charges. But the AO now claims that you should not have deducted tax under 194C, but you should have deducted tax under 194I. So the question is the AO right? And the answer is that because the company from whom the TDS was made, even though it was wrongly made, the company has paid full tax. Therefore, there is no liability on the shoulders of the deductor to make any further deduction. At the most, the deductor will be liable to make the interest payment. So as you can clearly see, this is the question entirely based on TDS. If you are well versed with the TDS provisions, you'll get full marks for all these questions. Then there's a question on transfer pricing provisions. So see how they have clubbed the questions. Partly on TDS, partly on transfer pricing provisions. S Limited, an Indian company in which B Incorporation, a France-based company, has 32% shareholding and voting power. So they have given 3 transactions where S Limited has tried to save the tax by reducing its income. So they have said that compute the income of S Limited by making the necessary adjustments. So what has been done here is that if you model answer, if you see, they have taken the total S Limited and one by one they have made the adjustment, transfer pricing adjustments, that if it is a normal party, how much expenditure would have been paid, and because this is a related party, now lesser cash is being paid. So company is trying to save on the tax by saving on the income. So the adjustments have been made accordingly. So for that purpose, section 92 is there. The transfer pricing arrangements are there. So all those can be studied and you can get through to the answer. Then the next questions which are there, question number 5 and even question number 6, they are purely theory questions. So in this question 5, I will say that a student should have a complete knowledge of assessments. Question number 4, as it was based mainly on the TDS provisions. Question number 5 is based mainly on the assessment provisions, how the assessing officer should assess the income, what are the powers of assessment and reassessment given to the assessing officer. The CA final student should also know the various provisions of interest and penalties. So even sections like 276CC should be known by heart. So if you know all those sections by heart, doing question number 5A will be comparatively simple for you. Model answers are there. We need not discuss those answers. So what you have to do is, when you are studying for this remaining time, along with the simplification and the chart preparation, I will suggest to you that you should focus on one area at a time when you are doing income tax studies. For example, if you are focusing on transfer pricing methods, that will ensure a few marks for you. Then if your TDS is comparatively a simple chapter, so if you focus on TDS, around 10 to 15 marks are in your pocket, remember. Then regarding, so far as the assessing powers of the assessment officers and interest and penalties are concerned, there are descriptive sections. There are no practical implications of that. Okay. So if you know those sections by heart, if you know all of those sections, make a table of those sections, See, question number 5, it carries 4 plus 4, 8. And down below also, if you see the Tyrex company, which is there, even that is a question on assessment. So 8 to 10 marks are in your pocket if you know the assessment provisions. So I will tell you to study like this. Study the TDS provisions because they are simple. Study the assessment and interest penalty provisions because they are theoretical in nature. And once you know them and you have a summary ready with you, even at the last minute, you can revise those and get your marks. So TDS tables, keep them in front of you for the last minute revision. Assessment authorities, their powers, the interest and penalties, keep that small table. Those 15-20 marks are in your pocket. So far as the transfer pricing methods are concerned, you will have to spend little bit of time in understanding how the transfer pricing methods are, how the adjustments are to be made and all. So there you may spend a little time, but TDS and interest penalty, sure shot marks. So please concentrate on that. Coming to question number 6. Question number 6, again if you see question number 6b, it is on tax planning and tax management. So again, if you have the basic knowledge of income tax, these are certain questions which will fetch you marks. That examine question number 6b, examine whether the following acts can be considered as tax planning or tax management, etc. So Mr. Kashish has deposited 1,50,000 in the PPF account. You know it is not at all tax evasion, it is tax planning. But the air conditioner which was fitted at the residence was shown as if it was fitted in the factory. This is an absolute tax evasion and it should not be resorted to. So these are certain questions. Then Mr. Varun's question, stockbroker's question, even that is a question based on logic. So there are certain questions even in this paper, you may not have the exact knowledge of the section, but if you know by common sense, you'll still get your marks. Okay, so I will divide income tax descriptive part into 3. One, where you need to have complete knowledge of sections, like the first KMP construction question, pretty difficult. Second, those topics which are simple and can fetch you marks even with the last minute revision, like TDS and interest penalty, etc. Third, logic based questions. If you apply common sense, even when you don't have the knowledge of the sections, you can still put the marks in your pocket. So convert it like that. Make tables, make the questions simple. Don't make them complicated for yourself. Okay, make the questions simple. Another thing which I will tell you, solve at least 2 question papers on your own. Okay, and get those assessed by somebody. You will automatically come to know, even before their assessed and marks are given, you will automatically come to know where do you stand in the income tax subject. So I'll say, in fact, tomorrow itself, solve the first paper, get it assessed, you will come to know where you stand, and then try to know where you are lagging behind, and then start making the improvements for the remaining time. Okay, the topic where you are not where you are sure that you will fetch 100% marks, make full preparation for those. Prepare tables of the sections, prepare tables of the TDS rates, etc. Prepare tables of interest and penalties. That will enable you to make a last minute revision, because at the last minute, on the last day of the exam, you will not be able to open your books and read. Okay, it is these summary notes which are going to help you at the last minute. So that is how it is. So divide your entire syllabus into chapters: TDS chapter, interest chapter, transfer pricing chapter, etc., etc. It's like that. Then the last question, as you can clearly see here, this is a question once again on international taxation. So international taxation, a lot of weightage has been given. So you need to study the international taxation from that point of view, that lot of weightage is there. But at the same time, international taxation is also a logic-based provision, that if you read it once with common sense, that why the provision is like this, then you need, I assure you, you need not read it again if you understand it by logic, if you understand it by analysis. Okay, so do give your 100% attention when you are reading your transfer pricing arrangement, your transfer pricing and international taxation provisions. Just make 1 or 2 readings, and that will make you ready for your income tax international provisions. Okay, Regarding MCQs, I will only mention that MCQs, the answers have all been given to you, no doubt. But I will only tell you that even there, don't be carried away that this is an MCQ. So I'll just put A, B, C, D, I'll tick mark and I'll get it like that. Don't do it like that. You should be thorough with your knowledge. Only then you will get your marks in MCQ. Otherwise, I have told you earlier also in this that MCQ is a killer. If you do not know the particular topic, I'm 100% sure you'll get the wrong answer in MCQ. So be prepared 100% and only then attempt your MCQs.
Hey, beneficiary mate.
Okay. So it's like that. So that's all I had to share with you. I've given you some tips also regarding the last minute revision, how to go about it, how to find out where you stand. Solve one question paper, you'll immediately come to know. And then try to make the necessary improvements. Divide your entire subject into simpler portion, the more complicated part, and which that will fetch you good marks at the end. Okay, I wish you all the best in your paper, taxation paper. Okay, and I hope all of you do well in this. Always remember, income tax, it is an analytical paper. So while studying, also study from the analytical angle, not from the angle of remembering each and everything. Okay, how the successful people do it? They don't remember each and everything. Okay, they remember the crux of it. They remember the logic behind it. Because on the day of exam, it is the logic which is going to help you. And the sections, etc., their main ingredients, etc., for that purpose, the tables which you are preparing, they will help you at the last minute when you're sitting in the exam room. All right. Any doubt which you want to ask regarding the preparation of the exams? No, I think there are no doubts. So I hope this today's session will help you a lot in the preparation, in studying further. If you have any doubts, even later on, you can share with our Vikasa branch, and I'll be happy to solve all the doubts. I, in fact, request Vikasa branch, if any doubts they come to you, you can forward the doubts to me on my email ID. I'll be happy to give answer to all of them. Thank you very much, all the students. Thanks a lot. This was a rich experience for me also.
Thank you, Shailesh sir. Hello. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, Adish, you can go ahead.
Yes. So thank you very much, sir. Just I would like to sum up these sessions of today of this Shailesh sir. Sir, you rightly mentioned that this direct tax subject is very vast subject. We need to study in parts. See, from my personal experience, I will advise to every student that if you divide it in parts and make charts or summary from that, it would be really helpful because it will help to you to revise during the last minute, and it will immediately get stored in your memory. So it will be easy to score. And MCQ, as you rightly mentioned, sir, it is killer. So either you may or you means you. It is not like a CPT. We think कि चलो भाई ABCD डाल दो कुछ ना कुछ आ जाएगा. It is not like that. You need to know logic. Only on the basis of that only you will be able to do that. So MCQ is definitely crux. So anyways, uh, uh, try to divide syllabus into parts as mentioned. Prepare the charts of TDS, assessment sections, your PGP, favorite stuff, etc., and learn the logic of international taxation. See that 30 marks is very much easy. I really appreciate, sir, your words. And it is once it is if you do the logically, then it's really manageable. And I am saying from my personal experience, I didn't remember any section of non-resident taxation, that 115B wala, all that stuff. But I understood the logic, what they were going means, what they mean to say, and on the basis of that, I was able to manage the MCQs. It is means from my personal experience, I'm saying like that. Anyways, and if any students would be having doubt, I will definitely ask Hetal ma'am to coordinate with you, sir. And this was a very wonderful session, and the sums which were then taken by you were also very great. So thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot. And thanks all coordinators, Hetal ma'am and other Vikasa, Sanika ma'am, for arranging such a wonderful session on behalf of students. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shailesh sir.
Thank you, madam.
Hital ma'am, shall we end the session?
Yes, sir, we can end the session.